just a black people issue. You know what I'm saying? It's not a black people issue. It's a world issue. You know what I'm saying? And it's just we're just talking about it to black people, right? And it's easier for us to say, you know, it's easy for us to say because our ancestors came through slavery that we could question the narrative of who we are, right? But that's everybody. That's everybody. If a person say I'm European, or a person says I'm Dutch, or I'm Swedish, or I'm Italian, these are all constructed realities. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like having enough courage to sit back and be like, wow, like this is how people design the world. It's not just by black people. They're calling these people white, Hispanic, Latino. You know what I'm saying? Like these are like made up ideas. And every, people agree on it. They put together articles in corporation, this whole thing. And all I'm saying is I don't have a problem with these things existing. But if there is no differentiation between the fact that I am a human being and here is a narrative, a constructed reality that I'm stepping into based off of the society that I'm in, right? We have to have a space. You feel you got any points on that?
I mean, I think it's just, the way things are, especially with black people, it's just there is such a nuanced, conversation, and it's such a it's gonna be handled a little different because, like, what you're saying is absolutely true with the divisions and the social constructs. It seems like everyone agreed that black people will be on this level. It seems like everyone that kind of agrees that, well, they're separate even from the rest of us. So I mean, like, for black people, especially, like, Hebrew Israelite community, there's certain, it's just like a condition that was created. You know what I mean? I think when we first started having conversations, we talked about it. I was explaining to you, like, how it is coming from the Hebrew Israelite community, and like the things that are like withheld in a sense. So it's almost like a reintroduction of thought that has to happen. But it's such a delicate situation in a sense. Like if you talk about, Rabbi Matthews, that's a deep one. That's
Yep.
a deep one because, like, for me, um, I wouldn't be hearing a train of thought if it wasn't for, Rabbi Matthews. Not in the sense of like what he was doing. Once you get into the technicalities of it, you can see there was, deficiencies and whatever. But like just the fact that there was an attempt, that's the reason why I'm here, whether it's correct or not. So I can understand the emotions behind stuff like that. And like I said, it's just there's a lot of resistance when you try to make change. And
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's a
And, and
delicate
it, well, I'm not to cut you. I just want to just respond at one point. So
thing.
the thing is like I understand that point, right, about Rabbi Matthews and you being here and these types of things. I still just don't believe that. I believe
Mhm.
that your neshama would have found a way to. It would have been whether it was this guy or that guy or this other character that came or this person, because I could say the same thing about Muslim leaders that inspired my parents.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like they challenged the thinking that my parents grew up with, right? They grew up with a certain level of self, like self definitions, like my parents, right? They grew up in a generation where they didn't feel like they were worth nothing, right? And so the Nation of Islam came in and they really challenged that idea that you are something, that you are like a king, you are divine, you are holy. They actually address that point. You know what I'm saying? And it's a real thing. Like from where they were, just a few, maybe a generation and a half from chattel slavery, right? That that they had to address. the condition of the man and the woman that was coming off of the plantation, like their kids, right? Or their grandkids, right? They were addressing that, right? So for me, I can't sit back and say like, oh, well, Nation of Islam didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. I can't say that. Now, were there aspects of them that went in areas that I disagree with? Obviously, right? Some anti-Semitism, some of those things that came out, their involvement with terrorist groups, these types of things. But the point is just saying, but still, as an African American, I cannot not look at our progression and as people coming off of the plantation, like real human progression, and say, oh, well, the Nation of Islam didn't do anything. They did. They did. I can't say the Christian church didn't do anything. It did. You know what I'm saying? Like it did it these things did something. The AME church, it did something. It was hugely impactful. It was hugely impactful with organizing the civil rights movement, right? The fight for justice, the fight from not just being murdered, right? Just because you're black. Like broad daylight, no laws for you, nothing. So okay, so they dealt with that. So I can't say that they haven't done anything, and I can't take away from God's divine order of how He rebuilt these people coming off of the plantation, right? My point is saying that those aspects of organic rebuilding that God has put us, through as African Americans cannot be seen as the methodology of why the human being was created. I can't make that narrative of coming out of slavery and dealing with the conditions psychologically, physically, emotionally, all these different things that come along with that, right? And then trying to establish oneself, right? And try to have a family, right? The whole system that the people are living by was imitating their captors. And so I can't necessarily look at that and say that, you know what, that this is what the purpose of creation was. Because yeah, I agree. Like the dynamic that a black person could be walking down the street. I told you, my grandfather, right, on my mom's side, he was like shot in broad daylight, right? In he, I mean, sorry, my great grandfather was shot in broad daylight in Mississippi just because he was walking on the front lawn of a white person who was having a bad day, right? So the fact that laws have progressed, well, that's illegal, to a degree, I guess, right? But it's just saying like that, the fact that that's illegal, okay, yes, that exists. Yes, that those type of dynamics did exist, and they didn't exist, I wouldn't be here. I would be not, or my family or the lineage I come from, right? So we're not challenging that point. There's many efforts around the world in different society of people who have fought for social justice and have fought for equality, right? And have fought for normalcy, right? Of human dignity, right? So that exists in the world, but that's not the purpose of creation, right? And so I have to be able as a soul, right? That has a body and a brain and all this, but as a soul, I have to be able to connect to the fact that me being a soul, I'm connected to everything that's ever existed. I'm connected since the beginning of creation to now. Whether I was in the heavens, whether I was reincarnated in Guguling, whatever it is, I as a soul have existed since the beginning of creation. Unless there's some concept of a new soul being, okay, I heard this idea of new souls. Okay, fine. But even the mechanism of there being a new soul existed since the beginning of time. So the point is saying that, so when I'm critiquing life, I have to critique it from a soul perspective. And I have to critique it from the frame of, thousands of years. Right. And so that I have to critique that component. Right. And so from that perspective, now I'm analyzing things. So yes, there were social justice movements. Yes, there were spiritual proclamations or affirmations, right? Or testimonies, right? And you had people who went on the path of Islam, you had people who went on the path of Judaism, you had the path who went on the path of Christianity, and then within those different categories or subcategories, right? And so, okay, that exists, and it fits in perfectly with the system that we're talking about, right? The solar system, right? It fits in perfectly with that. So my point is saying that it's not just you know the black issue, it's everybody issue. It's like even the Middle East. The Middle East was divided by Winston Churchill and the British. They created Iraq, these territories, bro. You know what I'm saying? Those are Arabian Peninsula. Jordan, this, all these places, they gave these people guns. They said, okay, hey, you guys, we're going to make you royal family, we're going to give you guns, we're going to train people, you have your own army. And as the petroleum come in, you guys protect it, and then we'll share revenues with you. Come on, bro. Saudi Arabia, bro. Saudi Arabia is a family. The House of Saud. They just took over that area through the help of the West to control the oil. And they make their money, and they're a trillion. They're beyond the money. It's
And
beyond.
Rob,
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask you a question on that. What do you think about, not to get political, what do you think about the relations between the U.S. and Saudi, like moving forward right now?
Saudi's good.
Mm,
Saudi's good, and it shows the whole dynamic. Like this was supposed to happen while Biden was in office. This whole thing happened, and then October 7th happened because they were trying to stop this. Because what's happening is the United States and Saudi Arabia, they're going into what they call a defense pact, meaning that in essence, Saudi Arabia is becoming another state
mm.
of the United States. Meaning, if you attack Saudi, you're attacking us. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you
So do
attack.
you,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah. So what that does is that it brings in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the UAE. All
Mm,
of them fall underneath that, and then you see other countries not wanting to be left behind, like Qatar and other people. Most of these countries, those Gulf countries are 100% allies of the United States, and they have been almost close for 100 years. Bahrain, Saudi, all these places, right? Now, the thing is, what that does is that now it creates like a Middle Eastern NATO, where you have these countries are consolidating. They're going to normalize with Israel. Right now, it's just too political. You know what I mean? Because Israel's going into Gaza. It's a whole thing, right? It's going to be messy for a while, right? Really messy. But the point is saying that this access of power gives them protection. It keeps us in control of the resources in that region, and then we slowly push out the radicals. So now, when you talk about the next 50, 100 years of the Middle East, you can see for the first time a unified place with Christians, Jews, Muslims, Kurds, right? Jews, are all living in this region through the frame of democracy, through the frame of capitalism, free market system, all these types of things. So, yeah, no, this is great. Saudis are a great ally, and Saudi is their friends. The Saudis can be trusted.
I was seeing something about that, and I was like, I was seeing U.S. obviously, having a conversation with Iran, and I was just curious because I'm not very big into the political atmosphere, like in the Middle East. So I was just curious what your thoughts was.
Yeah, no. Saudi's our friend. Saudi, in essence, was the ones who paid for the demise of Iran. I mean, it's a lot of two-facedness going on. You know what I mean? Because on one hand, when we do strike Iran, right, which is almost imminent at this point, that we don't want Iran, trying to take its aggressions out on Saudi on their oil fields. So Saudi has to come and give a presentation that, hey, we're not involved. We're not going to allow the Americans or the Israelis to use our airspace. We don't want to be involved. we're trying to create peace. And they even started efforts earlier where they did some military combined what do they call it? I don't know, whatever I don't know, whatever the name they have for when they do things together. They did one of those. So whatever. So the Saudi ambassador, was there physically on Iranian soil. You know what I mean? There's a lot of bad blood. The Saudis when Iran and Iraq had war, it was the Saudis who were really funding that war, like to the tune of like $1 billion a month or something like this, right? So it's bad blood in that regard. But the point is saying that a unified Middle East is what we want, right? We want a Middle East where there's no radical Islam, and Muslims can live in peace, and they have diversity. Muslims can live the way that they want to. There's no control, and people could be innovative, they could be creative, they could start businesses, raise money for businesses, create jobs for people through innovation, right? So that's how we see the future of Iraq and Iran and Syria, all these places, and so it's an exciting time. It's unfortunately there's a lot of because Hamas uses civilians as shields, right? Which is the Western mind can't even perceive that, right? Like people really think like Israel just like, yeah, we want to ethnically cleanse these people. It's like, bro, it's Israel. It's just 2 million Palestinians that live in Israel. The war is in the south of Israel, in Gaza and the West Bank, because these people are radicalized. They are military. They have weapons. They have rockets. They have RPGs. They have grenades. You know what I'm saying? Like, these aren't like just people like chilling, like, villagers, farming, and we're just like, come here, boy. And we're just beating them in the head. No, bro, these people, they're going to war. They're no joke. You saw October 7th. It's no joke. These guys are, and they're ready to do it again. This is their lifestyle. It's not like, oh, we lost, we need to fall back. It's like, no, more death. The more death, the more the world is aware of it, the more we could get people on our side, the more we could make Israel look like the aggressor. And we have billions of dollars backing us because the Palestinians are really a resistance against the West. Not geographically, but intellectually, right? Meaning that the story of these Palestinian people and them not having a land and Israel butchering them and genocide, all these concepts, right, allows the Middle East as a collective that's radicalized to also push back, right? They use Israel on two fronts. They use Israel to influence people abroad, meaning outside of the Middle East, and then they use it domestically to infuse and control the citizens. Say, see, this is why you need us here to protect you and to fight against this and militarize everything, right? And deal with sanctions and this, and there's no food and this, and no schools and all this like struggling. You guys should accept this because we have to fight against these evil SOBs, right? That's the game. So they stay in power, right? And they're all billionaires, right? You look at them, the leaders of Hamas, bro, these guys grew up in refugee camps. They're billionaires. How you become a billionaire? Not just one. You're the Yasser Arafat, the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization. These dynamics, these people are billionaires. Yasser Arafat, these people. So they're getting rich. They build underground cities. They bomb Israel. They run underground. They leave the civilians on top. Like, hey, man, we'll see how many of y'all alive when we come up. You're doing it for the cause. We'll be back. That's what it is. Right? Wouldn't you think if you had an underground city, right? Let's just say you're going to war, right? You feel you're being oppressed 70 something years, you're oppressed, this whole thing. Okay, say you believe that. Okay, fine. Why would you not create a space in your underground city so when you do fire rockets, or if you do go in and do a military attack, that the civilians, meaning the women and children and elderly or sick, can go to these underground places and stay there while you fight it out? Why not? Why would you leave these people out there? You have underground cities, tunnels all over. Okay, let the kids go down there, right? Let the kids go down. The babies. The infants, let them go down. The pregnant mothers, let them go down. No, that's not the game. That's not the game. The game is to allow the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Hamas, Fatah, which is a political party, right? Islamic Jihad, all these different groups that are here, they collect billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars they collect from the death of Palestinians and the destructions to their homes. They make tons of money. And that's not to say there aren't corrupt people on the other side that aren't also profiting from it. But the bottom line is saying that it's a scam, right? The whole thing's a scam. There's no Palestinian people. Palestine, we saw the video on it. Palestine was something that the Romans called the Jews because they didn't want to call it Judea anymore. And it was a Greek word, right? And that's what they want. That's what they called it. And it stayed in. It was in literature, the whole thing. It wasn't until 1967 they created the concept of the Palestinian people. This is after the Six-Day War. When they saw Israel taking more power, they said, hey, you guys have to actually form yourself into a people. This is the British, I mean, the Russians did this. The KGB, they set this whole thing up. So they came and created these people. They invented a people. You see people say, hey, I went to bed Jordanian, I woke up Palestinian. People are Jordanian and Egyptians, bro. They created a concept. I'm Palestinian. There was never a country, Palestine, ever. So the level of sophistication of games that they're playing and the concepts they're creating, we have no understanding of this in the West. We have no understanding of this. Like to us, it's like we can't imagine. Like it's easier for us to see Ashkenazi Jews with guns going into a neighborhood where you see darker people than them and say, oh man, the white man oppression over there too. It's easier to say that than to say that this is a political front, a militaristic front for all of these countries, all these different nation states that are here, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, by Jordan, right? You know, Egypt, all these places have been in war with Israel, right? Not Jordan, but I'm saying Egypt, all these places, right? They've all had issues with Israel at some point. So they are, when you talk about the PR machine that you see right now in the West and the billions of dollars that have been invested into colleges to create the ideology of professors that teach this to kids. They teach the false narrative. This is what I'm trying to say. That's why I'm so connected to the narrative idea because I'm living in the Middle East. The whole thing's invented. There's no Iraqis. There's no Syrians. There's no Saudis. These are all concepts. They just created them the last couple hundred years, bro. The whole thing. People from this part of the world, that part of the world, they migrated here. They gave them names, concepts, created borders, the whole thing, just packaged it. And so that's what's going on over here. But I can't look at my life as a black person. Like, damn, the whole thing we got is packaged too. We have never dictated our identity. And then we got some heroes, and I'm not saying, okay, fine. I mean, if you get chizuk from it, great. But like my thing is I look at that as the chitlin concept. It's like we just take whatever we've gotten and made the best out of it. And I get that. But at what point is that no more? At what point do you say I deserve the best portion of wisdom that exists on planet Earth for our generation, directly from the highest sources? Right? I want to be enlightened with prophecy. I want to be enlightened with, divine inspiration. Right? I don't need to follow anybody. Right? And so that component, right? That dynamic of being able to critique the world in a new way, that's how we get this access. The whole construct that limits all of us because we have all are living underneath narratives, which is a form of avodah zarah. It's a form of idol worship. We're putting something in between us and the creator. That's what we're doing right now. Unless we're claiming one of the 70 nations, right? Say, I'm not Israel, right? I'm one of the other seven. Okay, so claim that nation. That's in the Torah. But other than that, these are like, constructs. So that's where I'm at. And I just want to be free of all of that. Like I could participate in being an American. I could participate in being African. I could participate, but it's not who I am. These are things that I'm choosing to participate in. And that's my argument. And so this focus that they have when they give us these leaders, they're like, hey, Rabbi Matthews, he was a great Jewish leader. How do we know? Hey, we got pictures. There's people who are part of those congregations and their descendants. All right, cool. What makes him different than Elijah Muhammad? Or Marcus Garvey, or what's his name? Noble Jew Ali or something. What's his name? Noble. I don't know these guys. But the point, these guys, 5%, all these types of people, they had their Enlightenment movements. All of them. So are you going to say Rabbi Matthews was more important than Elijah Muhammad? Oh, because he was seen by the Torah. Okay. What Torah was Rabbi Matthews going by? I don't know. I don't know. So I can't critique him, just like I can't critique. If I put him in the category of all Jews, right, and not create a special category because, bro, he's not even African American, right? That's number one, right? Like he said he was originally from Lagos, but he's from the Caribbean, and I don't have a problem with it. God bless that brother. You know what I mean? And whatever positivity he did, God bless it. But I cannot put him on a pedestal if I'm looking at him as a Jew. Because if he's a Jew, like what was going on? Like what Masorah was he following? What was he following? But oh well, no one wanted to teach him. All right, well, why are we talking about him then? Okay, I get it. He was during a time where people were racist and they weren't helping black people. I get it. But why am I talking about him though? You know what I'm saying? So like at what point do we do that? I heard a great quote. They said you could tell how much a guy loves himself by the woman he chooses. You know what I'm saying? And it's like what we choose to represent us and identify ourselves with, represents how we feel about ourselves. Because it's like, why am I connected to Rabbi Matthews and the Commandment Keepers? Now, I'm not against it. I'm just saying, are we talking about Judaism or are we not? If we're saying there's a special category for black people, I don't buy that. That's not. Don't say that to the Ethiopians. Oh, but we were in slavery. We're in America. We were just okay. I get it. Okay, I get it. But again, the question is, why am I talking about him then? And I think that's the point that I'm making. Same thing by Elijah Muhammad. Okay, what was he teaching? The white man's the devil. We need to, do our own thing, be together within us, form our own nation. We should buy and sell, with us, build our own economy. Okay, I hear those are all great ideas, right? But again, has nothing to do with the purpose of creation. Has nothing to do with why creation was here. Why the human being is here, why the soul is here, what are we supposed to do? This isn't new information. It didn't just start with the Kabbalah Center. I mean, that's when I found out about it. And again, and I'm not faulting people for not knowing. Okay, I'm not putting, oh man, how could you not know this? It was all over everywhere. No, it wasn't. The Rob Berg says, he said before the Holocaust happened, he said the CIA couldn't find the books of the Ari. He said CIA, KGB, Mossad, they couldn't find the books of Ari. That's how hidden this information was. I'm not against. So I'm not saying like why don't they just go to come to Israel and learn? I'm not saying that. But again, if you did not have that information and you weren't teaching that information, why am I talking about you? And it's not limited to black leaders. white leaders too. I just don't know any white leaders. I just know white politicians. I can't tell you like white leaders. You know, I can't tell you a white spiritual leader. Okay, maybe you have people in the church. That's not even a conversation. I'm not even remotely interested in critiquing the thinking process of a preacher in church. So that's my point. I don't know any white leaders. You know what I mean? I know they have them. I know they have white coat leaders. This, but whether it's George Washington or whoever, who and George Washington, he built a country, right? The institutions that govern America today were created by George Washington. Department of Treasury, Department of Defense, right? All these departments, right? I want to say agriculture. I don't get myself in trouble, but the point is just saying that those things were those institutions were built by George Washington. Those were part of his visions to expand this country. And so, and America is one of the greatest countries, you know, in terms of countries like ever. Does America prepare people for transforming their soul? Does it prepare people for the purpose of creation? So what makes it successful exactly? I can earn a lot. I can earn a lot. Okay. How's that worked out for the American population? Has it made them have we produced a happy group of people? A fulfilled group of people, an inspired group of people? Again, it's not here to put down America. I'm just saying at what point do we create a separation between what is and what should be? Like when does that happen? Right? And that's my point. It's like, okay, Rabbi Matthews is a lot of people. I mean, my family never said me, never knew about Rabbi Matthews. They still don't. I'm here talking to you. You know what I'm saying? So it's just saying that our souls in God's will, in some say, the Kabbalah say, with the support of Eliyahu Navi, has guided us to this point. And that goes for a ton of people. We're not the first black people to get involved in Torah. You know what I'm saying? So, what are your thoughts on that before we go forward? I just want to, because it's a very important point. It's a very important point.
I mean, it's like I get what you're saying. Like it's kind of like the conversation of um, if someone's never had money, you know, and they in a certain environment, and then you like tell them like, hey, money ain't everything. It's like, let me get it and find out. You know what I mean? It's like you get from a standpoint, it's like, no, once you get it, you're gonna realize like there's more to it. But at that state, it's like, bro, let me just get it first. If I had 300,000, 500,000, a million, it don't matter. My thought process would be totally different. You know what I mean? Like I'm good. I just need that and I'm good. You know? And it's like you can see it's like, no, but you have to get there. It's like once you get there, then you can get. So it's like when you don't have it, like going to that level of thought, it's not impossible. It's just not formed out yet. It's like we were talking about, like the vessel and the light. You know what I mean? Like it'll be too much light. You know, the vessel was shattered. So it's like the concept isn't even formed yet for like people in that sense. And it's kind of like, you know, I remember having conversations like if you talk to a person who's in like their 60s, 70s, and you tell them about Martin Luther King, no matter Malcolm X, they're going like, what? You know what I'm saying? It's like
Get him out of here.
because of the era that they came in. So it's like the progression of thought. It's not even whether it's true or not doesn't even matter. It's more of an emotional standpoint. It's what you were conditioned to hold on to. So, and I've had those conversations. I've been chastised severely, but like, hey, if it's true or not, get out of here, literally right now. Like, move. Like, I feel you. Though. I had to like get to that point. Like, I understand. I understand why that conversation can't be had, regardless if it's true or not.
So,
So,
yeah, go ahead. Go
good.
ahead. No, no,
No,
no,
go
no.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say that you're bringing up very, very important points because when we talk about teaching Torah, right? When you talk about teaching Torah, you you have to teach from the perspective and the level and the struggle that that person's dealing with, right? So the presentation I would give to, if I wanted to inspire a group of yeshiva guys, would be much, and depending on what level they're at, would be much different than people who are not so religious at all, but still at some type of religious type of a thing, and I'm talking right versus someone who's not Jewish, right? And so, or meaning there's no like affinity to the laws or concepts. But the point is like what you're pointing out. This is, and this is what I'm saying. A lot of people could talk about, they want to reach out to Black people. People see me and they see me making moves, and they're like, they want to do it too, right? They want to every other Black Jews are like, oh, I got this. I got, I know Torah too. Blah blah. Okay, cool. But the point is, the difference between those guys and someone who's trained as a teacher is that what I'm saying to you is what you just brought out is the whole mechanism. The Torah for the African American is dealing with that perception that I need to get that 600,000 first, and then I'll listen to you. Dealing with that Yetzer Hara, dealing with that darkness, and honing in on that perception without even addressing it. Right? Because he believes he needs to get there. Because the question is, now we're talking it out. Why does he believe that? Why does he believe that? He believes that because he's been indoctrinated that is where it's at. He believes that is where the fulfillment is. That is where the light is. And he's seen TV movies about it. He's seen commercials about it. He's seen music videos about it. He's seen movies about it. He even has neighborhoods that are sectioned off that reinforce all the images that he's seen. So how are you going to come to him and say, nah, man, that's not where it's at, man? It's where you're at right now. So that Torah that would unfold that intellect at that stage, that's the future, right? That's the future. And all the thinking processes, when you think about this community and this whole dynamic, this is what you're dealing with. Because that kid who goes up and he picks up that gun, he needs to get it now. Why does he need to get it now? Because if he could get his hands on that cash and he can acquire these items, he's going to be fulfilled. That's what it is. He's looking for the light, right? You got something on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think another dynamic with it is, for like African Americans is most African Americans are really very, well, I mean, I don't want to categorize the whole, everything, but most are chilling. It's like doing good, not causing no harm to nobody. Playing within the rules that have been established that we didn't choose. Like, so it's like, man, just give me the money, bro. I'm chilling. Like I'm not trying to hurt nobody. I'm not trying to, break any laws. I'm just trying to, enjoy with my people, my family. And like we go into it's the energy that you're looking for. That energy is actually connected to the higher source. You know what I mean? Because it's not the money, it's not the
Exactly.
property, it's the feeling. It's the
Exactly.
feeling of security that you have, the feeling of certainty that you possibly could have, which is a fallacy in a sense because it all comes from Hashem. Everything He gives you is a part of the conditions that you need to, elevate your soul in this life. It's like that reality doesn't really exist, and it goes into the conditioning of how we've been, molded in this country in a sense. So it's a huge like endeavor to try to shift the minds of the Black American for sure, and that's
Well,
just the Black
but
people.
it's not Black America. It's America.
No, in general, yeah, for sure. The whole everyone,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's the entire system needs to be restructured.
So,
Because
go ahead.
once you go through the tiers, it's all the same thing. You just have a
Exactly.
different perspective of it, and you think because of your viewpoint that you're, oh, well, I'm not that. No, you're in the same umbrella. You know
See,
what I
you
mean?
are. They got you.
So, yeah, I understand what you're saying completely, 100%.
They got you, bro. So, and you brought up a point too. So it's like this. Now, like now that we're talking about this, let's address it with wealth. right? Let's address it with money. So it's like this: a guy that already is married, it's easier for him to attract women than a guy who is single. Now, why is that? Why is that concept? A guy who has more girls, right? And in fact, if a guy's going out looking to meet girls, he should take a girl with him, right? We even know that. Don't take a bunch of guys. Chill with girls. What are you crazy? Girls meet girls. They'll tell you what's going on. But the point is saying that what's going on with that concept spiritually, right? Because we could have to look at the Torah now. What is the Torah in the fact that men who are married or even have wedding rings on attract more women than guys who are single, who are actually looking to get married? What is that? What is the comfort? What is the safety that women feel? And people are, oh, well, because he showed commitment and women are attracted to that. That guy over there, he's ready to commit to you too. No, what it is that there's a different level to connect to wealth. And the level of connecting to wealth is not having lack, right? I'm already good. I don't need any of it. That's when the money comes. I don't need it. I'm good. Right now, I am good. That's when the Satan's like, all right, man, get that boy some money right now. Just mess him up. Yeah, you got 5 mil now. How you feel? How you feel? You still holy or you falling to Gosmius? Which one is it? So the idea of being able to reconfigure the concept of wealth as a mechanism, because money does have an energy for potential. You could change people's lives, right? You could give people the environment. Like you said, if a person is starving, you're not going to listen about God until they eat something, right? So from that perspective, 100%. But that doesn't mean that he need to have a 4-course meal either, right? To understand what's going on themselves, right? And so what we're saying over here, or the point over here, is the idea to say that the point over here is to say that when we get to that point where the energy, I mean, past the basic needs, right? People living, beyond in extreme poverty, is not going to want to hear a sheer about, manifest. They're going to be like, fool, I am hungry, bro. I'm about to die, So I get it, right? So I'm saying the level past that, which most people in America are, right? And what I'm saying is that's on one point. The one point I'm saying is that aspect of addressing what does money mean to me? Am I looking for money to fulfill me? Or am I looking to acquire wealth to be able to manifest X, Y, and Z, which are in the frame of sharing, not in the frame of receiving? Because if I perceive that the light is in the money itself, that is a form of Avodah Zarah. I may not realize it. I may not realize that's a conscious thought, right? But that thought itself will block the wealth because the perception is not pure, or maybe pure is not the right word. The perception is not in line with the source, right? And it's like anything. A guy who's looking for a wife, right? A girl looking for a husband. If you're saying I'm lacking, and like this guy hit me up today, and he was trying to talk to me about Judaism, right? And in the black guy, so every black guy, somebody gives him my number. Oh, you're a black guy, you're interested. Talk to Mordecai. Talk to Rabbi Mordecai, right? All right, fine. I talk to the guy. I was just texting, but the point is that yeah, I just feel like I'm missing something. That is not the way to come into Torah. And that's one of the gifts that separated me from a lot of people coming through the Kabbalah Center and that mechanism. Because through that mechanism, very similar to your path right now, I learned those skills of dealing with fulfillment. I didn't know all the Gemara and the Halacha and this and this. No, but I had a basic understanding, leaving the Kabbalah Center after 7 years, right? That I had a basic understanding that I was a source of my destiny, that I needed to receive the light of God in my soul, and these were the tools to do it. Now, did I know how to manifest the tools and this and all? Nope. I learned that in Judaism. But I did not come into Judaism looking to be a Jew to be fulfilled. I was already good before I was Jewish. I did a bris milah to reveal a higher level of my soul, which was basically just drawing blood, right? And I took an oath to keep the laws of the Torah, which prior to that I did not because my parents were Muslim. I never had anything for that. But the binding of myself to the laws was a mechanism to receive more light from the Creator and to be connected to God's light. Because I was all about big energy, as you can see. I'm on a Temple Mount. That's not normal. You know what I'm saying? So it's just saying that I'm a big light guy. So I could, if I never got connected to spirituality, I would have took that out on business, right? And I would have need to have hundreds of billions of dollars to say like, okay, I feel something, and still would have been empty, right? So the fact that I was able to it's like this is a very graphic example, but it's like a man being able to have like erections, right? But never experiencing sex, right? Like it's like that idea. It's like, yes, you're aroused, you're ready, you're good, but you no matter how aroused you are and how much, expansion you receive, right? You cannot do anything past that stage. And so for me, that's what the context of me going into Torah and that, because it's like, I remember one time, when I decided to, I don't know, I told you a story, but I remember when I really decided I wanted to convert because I started, I kind of like started to learn about it, conversion, that type of thing at the Kabbalah Center. It's not something I normally do, but Yehuda, he brought it up to me. And I was dating a girl at the time that was Jewish, right? Bro, this girl who was Jewish, bro, you know what she said to me? She's like, why in the hell would you want to convert to Judaism? I was like, dang, I thought she was going to be into it. She was like, why would you want to convert to Judaism? And I was just like, um, the Torah, like Kabbalah, the whole thing. She's like, when I started dating you, I didn't sign up for this because I took her to meet with my teacher. I was already learning with my teacher, right? I was already learning with my teacher. And he told me to bring her to the meeting. He's like, yeah, he's going to eat kosher and he's going to keep Shabbat and this and blah, blah. And she was like, okay, okay. And I was like, all right, cool. We could have something, together, right? Because she was Jewish. I grew up with her, went to high school with her. And I just remember we got into the car and she turned to me. She's like, hey, when we got together, I didn't sign up for this. And I was like shocked. And she was just like, really, like, just really, we're living together. And it was just like, she was really emphatic about it, bro. And I kid you not, one day I was at home. This is like maybe a few weeks, a month after. Bro, she came into the house and she was like, yeah, I went down to the Islamic Center and I did a Shahada. Bro, this is a Jewish girl I went to school with. Dad's Israeli, IDF soldier, the whole thing. Mom's Russian, the whole thing. And bro, I'm not doing nothing Islamic. I'm at the Kabbalah Center. That's where my focus is at. And so she does that, and I really like at that point when she went and did that, I really thought something was wrong with me. I was like, why would I be considering becoming a Jew or converting to Judaism? And this girl who's a Jew is trying to be Muslim. I thought, bro, I backed off of it until we broke up. Right? We broke up, and maybe a year after that, I had a TV show, Jerk All Stars, and it did really well. It was sponsored by Sprite. The show generated a lot of money, and I got some big checks out of it. My biggest checks really came out of those experiences. And so I just remember one time I was just laying in my bed and I just got this really massive wire deposit. And at this time, when I was doing the TV show, when I broke up with my ex, it was before I did the deal with the TV show. It was a crazy time how everything worked out. It was right before I did that deal. And so part of when I signed the deal with the company to do this show, one of the things that I had them put in the contract that they'll have a driver for me. Right. So if I need to go to the set, this, whatever, blah, 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 drive for me the whole thing. Right. Because I didn't have a car. She took the car. Right. And so, I stayed in an apartment. She left. And so that was part of the deal. Right. So this wire deposit comes into my my bank, and I wake up in the morning. And so what I do, I get a taxi and I go and buy a car, right? Convertible AMG kit, one of my favorite times ever with a car was with this particular car, right? Whole thing, right? Just went, swiped my card, took it. The guy told me I could get it for 7, 8,000 less if I took off the rims. And I was like, absolutely not. It was like one of those things, right? So then after that, I drive up to Wilshire Boulevard and I go to a restaurant there. I don't know if it's still there. It's called the Newsroom, right? And so, anyways, whatever. It's just it's like a place, whatever. It's just like in a very vibrant part of LA. So I go in there and I get a menu and I just order a bunch of stuff. And I remember as the food was coming, I was like eating this, and I was like by myself. And I was sitting at this table, I had all this food, and amazing clothes, the whole thing, right? And I just said like, and I looked over and I saw a bunch of other guys also sitting at tables. Some guys had cell phones, some guys had newspapers, whatever, but they're sitting there, right? And these were like business guys, right? And I was just sitting there and it just like, and I just thought back to, just growing up, in the Valley, West Hills, Calabasas, like these places where there's a tremendous amount of wealth, tremendous. And looking back on that and just seeing the parallels from what I grew up in and how like empty it was, and weird, and then connecting that to my life now. And I was like, wait, so this is like has to be more to life than me just doing another deal. Because I know I could keep doing shows and creative concepts. I know how to market, I know how to market things. I know how to find things of value. I know how to put together deal structures, all this stuff, right? So I could keep doing it. It's a factory thing, right? And so at that time, when I was sitting at that table full of food, these different, whatever I decided I wanted a menu, I decided I said, if I'm going to go and do the conversion thing, it has to be now. Because if I go further, I ain't going to turn back. You know what I'm saying? Like when that money starts coming in, it's like you got to make a clear decision because you have to do things with the money. You got to invest it, you know, um, um, it was like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now because money has a mind of its own. You know what I mean? Like real money has a mind of its own. It makes you have to do things, right? Now you got to really pay taxes, right? And you got to put that money. You got to buy property. You got to do something. You know what I mean? You got to do something. And in that, whatever you do with that money, now you have a responsibility to whatever you do with that. So if you buy an apartment or a complex or a house or whatever it is, now you gotta now you gotta keep making money. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to keep this thing going up or do whatever business venture around it or whatever. But the point is just saying that you had to make a decision. And then for me, it was like I wanted freedom. You know what I mean? I wanted to be able to see the world. I wanted to explore more, and I just didn't want to just turn into this whole like system. Like, you there, you get an entertainment business because it's like in LA, there's only three ways to really make money, right? High finance, entertainment, and real estate. Right? Real estate's too boring for me. High finance, I was in, but from a frame of not just exclusively finance, but finance in terms of investment, in terms of things that I was involved in. So I was in that space, and it was good, and I liked it. But at the end of the day, because I think how I grew up, it wasn't so exciting, and I already was prepared. Bro, the first car I had was a 500. My dad bought it for me, right? I was in high school, or it was right after high school, right? And so I'm saying like those things weren't like such an accomplishment. It was a floss. It was a stunt. It was like, oh yeah, I'm doing it type of a thing. But it wasn't like, you know, the same way like a guy like Amari getting his $1 million contract out of high school from North Florida. You know what I'm saying? It's a different thing. So it just so for me it wasn't the most difficult decision to make And so I just remember contacting a friend of mine who contacted, I don't know, I ended up with some rabbi, whatever. It didn't work out with him. This guy's trying to get all his money out of me. You guys sees me roll up in a Benz, drop top, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm just coming out with sunglasses on the whole thing. I'm out of here, right? And so this guy's trying to hit me up for money. Anyways, luckily I met Rabbi Yefuta in his whole random set of things that how I met him, and I went through the process. But the point is just saying that the point of saying is that, like, in order for me to go through that process as a person, I didn't grow up having an issue with Islam, right? I was coming from people of success. I have great parents. It's not like I grew up in some environment. Oh, I don't want to be like my dad. I want to do something different. God forbid. The complete opposite, right? I grew up with my dad wearing a suit and tie every day, right? We used to make fun of him. Like, even when we went out on family gatherings, he was in like suit and tie. What I mean? Sometimes he relaxed as he got older. But I remember my grandmother, blessed her memory, she used to be like, she's like, man, why Dwight? Why you always, So he was ready. He was in that zone, and he got us out of there. Like, he went out and made some real money. And really put us in a really good situation. To have a lot of access and freedoms, right? So, now I'm not trying to make this my whole life story, but I'm just saying, for me to let go that the fact that Islam was not what I thought it was growing up. And not to say it's bad. I am in support of Islam. Muslims should, be successful, but the right type of Islam, right? The Islam that is about peace, that's about acceptance, which is about tolerance, which is about inclusion, right? Because we don't want radical Judaism, we don't want radical Christianity, we don't want radical Islam. We want an environment of inclusion, acceptance, peace, these types of things, right? That's what we want for everybody, right? That's the goal. So, but to go through that process, and I grew up with a peaceful Islam. I grew up with parents that were spiritual, they're into Sufism and this, and we have family meetings, and they invested. My mom said my dad invested over $1 million into therapy. Like, meaning from the time we were kids to we were in our like 19, right? We went every week. We had therapists, we would talk to them, our emotions, this whole thing. Because my parents were like, we don't know what we're doing. That was their position. They got to a point, we don't know what we're doing. Our families were dysfunctional. We have no clue what we're doing. We met some good people, this, and he had to pay like, hundreds of dollars an hour. And it wasn't just me, my other siblings, my parents, everybody. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes as groups. So we grew up like that. We grew up like having a therapist. I remember my friend Damien, who I grew up with, who was like, interesting story. Like, when we were in high school, ninth grade, he randomly got a girl pregnant, right? Could you imagine that? You're a freshman in high school and you get a girl who's a senior in high school pregnant, right? He's like really good looking guy, but he was supposed to be the football star guy, because when we played Pop Warner football, he was the man, right? So I'm telling you about my life, right? So he was the man growing up, right? Like, he was a quarterback, good looking guy, the whole thing. I was kicking it with him. The girls were always there, right? But he's one of those guys. I remember I met him like in eighth grade, not eighth grade, seventh grade. No, the summer of seventh grade going to eighth grade. And I met him in that summer. He was from another school, but summer school, everyone who was in the surrounding area went to one place. You know what I'm saying? So it's probably, maybe it was like that by you as well. But so he's one of those guys, you go, you sit down somewhere and you see someone else and you guys look at each other and you just start giggling. It was like one of those things, like, like, okay, I get it. We're gonna have fun, right? You could just instantly see it, right? So he's one of those guys, right? And so he grew up with me. He was very close to my family. And my dad actually had a conversation with him when he got the girl pregnant, and after the second kid was about to be born, he said, "Bro, you got to marry her, right?" Like, he told him that. It's like, I gotta, you gotta marry her. Like, anyway, he married her, and they're married to this day, and they got like 5 or 6 kids or something like this, right? But the point is, the reason I'm mentioning it, because when I was growing up, when I had to go to therapy, if he was with me, he would come with me, not to the therapy, but he'll sit in the lobby, right? He'll be waiting for me, our session, I'm in and out, blah, 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 whatever. And it was just random to him that we did this and the whole family did it. And sometimes we were there and coming out and the whole thing, right? And so years later, he came to me because he went to war. He went to the army. He served like 3 or 4 terms, Iraq, Afghanistan. He got a Purple Heart. Like, I mean, like, this guy is a star, right? He was on like different. They have pictures of soldiers, holding the flag. But he has amazing stories. But he said to me years later, this is as an adult, right? he says to me, I haven't talked to him forever, and he said to me, he said, yeah, when I got back from the war, he had a lot of problems, like he was dealing with PTSD, all types of stuff, right? And he said it really affected his marriage, right? It really affected his marriage and this, and it was, thinking about divorce, all these types of things, right? God forbid, right? And he said, but he remembered about me and my family and us going into therapy. He said, because you guys were the only successful Black family we knew, right? Like growing up, the Hassans, like we were a big family. My parents were together. We had a huge home. People were always at our house. Our house was the chill spot. You know what I'm saying? Like all my friends were at my house playing video games in my room. My brothers, their friends were in their rooms playing video games. People hanging out. So it was tons of kids always around our house. And plus, my mom's a teacher, right? At the time, she wasn't a professor. She was like a regular teacher. Actually, she taught at my high school. If you can imagine how embarrassing that was. But the point is saying that he told me that he went to therapy, and it turned his marriage and his wife and their marriage completely around, right? And he credited that to my parents, and he told me that, but then he even told my parents that later on, and my parents helped him with something. I don't know. They still talk to my parents. They don't talk to me, but they talk to my parents. You know what I'm saying? Like my friends from high school, bro, they can't deal with me, bro. I went too far. You know what I'm saying? So the point is just saying. So this is how my whole situation grew up, and so a lot of those dynamics of reassessing, like even my parents, like understanding my parents necessarily didn't have the solution, but still having the utmost respect for them, right? I think that was kind of like the beginning of, like, if a person could look at your parents critically, not in a negative frame critically, but in terms of, does this really, their frame of reference, does it work for me? Then I think that would be the beginning of questioning the world, right? And I think a lot of that was given, going, the therapy, these types of things. So I hear what you're saying in terms of that aspect of darkness. However, there is something to be said that if a person goes through a series of experiences and processes in their life, and they gain certain truths and wisdoms, that they can transfer that back and speed up another person's time. That they didn't have to go through those things. They didn't have to. That's the point of wisdom, right? And being a mentor and an elder, right? Is that you're supposed to give information and then apply it in a certain way that people could spend up. So I'm saying, like, whether a person is going out to kill or a person who just wants to live life, right? Right? Because you can say the person who just wants to live life, he's at that rock level, right? He's like, hey, I just want to live life, and and this. But then the guy who wants to make money, he says, hey, I want to chill, but I want to make a lot of money. And another guy may say, hey, I want to make a lot of money. He may not do. He may do it through violence. But the point is the same. Both of them still want luxury. Now, it's obviously one's connected to respecting of others, and another one isn't. So we understand that differentiation. But the point is that we want to get people to the human level, right? Where they just want to connect to the creator itself. And that's just a part of the system. It's not like you're taking someone somewhere else. I mean, obviously they have to do it themselves. Like you're doing it yourself. You're contacting people like me, you're learning, you buy Rabbi Zion Lex, all these different people, blah, blah, right? So you went out, right? And you found people, and God brought them to you, right? They said when a student when the student says he needs a teacher, he appears, right? So you went out and did that. I went out and did that. So that's the point that I'm making, that no one came to you. Yeah, you're going to be learning for the next 50, 60, 70 years of your life, right? Even longer, maybe, God willing, right? With all the technology, right? Maybe we'll live another 150 years, who knows, right? But the point is, it's saying that 200 years, right? But the point is, it's saying that all of us, because I don't want to live 200 years by myself. But the point is just saying that, unless that's what God wanted. The point is just saying that when we think about the condition of people that we're connected to, we have to understand what they're dealing with. And they're dealing with the perception. You said it beautifully. They're dealing with the perception that once I acquire that, or if I get more of this, it's going to increase my fulfillment. And all I'm saying is, yes, you can acquire money, And you can even receive the pleasures of money. There's nothing wrong with having a Lamborghini. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with having a Bentley if that's what you want. If it makes you if you get excited, if you get pleasure from it, and it's a good time, and you have the resources, and you've given your tzedakah, and this is how you choose to spend. Okay, why not? Enjoy. Life is about pleasure. Enjoy. But life is not about living for pleasure or living for the sake of pleasure, because then that takes away the fact that the soul has different experiences. Some experiences are harder than others. Some experiences are more freedom than others, right? But the point is saying that this is the concept of Shavuot, right? Obviously, I was going to go bring some more Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, but we just turned into another conversation. But this is Shavuot. Shavuot is letting go everything, letting go all the past, letting all the old ideas, all the ways of who I am. What does Hashem say to Abraham? What does he tell him to do? He tells him to leave everything behind. Leave your generation behind. Leave your father's house behind. Leave the land that you grew up in. Leave it behind. What is God saying? He already did that. Right? We already learned this Torah together. He already did that when he was in Ur Kasdim, and he was in Haran. He already did those things. He already made the decision to come to Eretz Israel. So what was God saying to him if he already did these things? He's saying, leave it in your mind, not just physically. Leave it in your mind. Leave it in your mind that there's any form of fulfillment that are connected to any of these things that are presented on this tray, this entree called life. However, I can utilize these things because pleasure is good. And I should have as much pleasure as possible. But not at the limitation of allowing my soul to do what it needs to do in its lifetime. That's why certain people, Kabbalists, they stayed away from too much pleasure. All right, you hear the Ram call. If you're trying to get to these super levels, you ain't gonna be chasing pleasure like that, even though pleasure is not asur. Enjoy. If it's kosher, enjoy. But at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, the sages say it's more to life than that. Now, the point is saying that I'm not addressing the Kabbalistic level yet. Okay, that's not what I'm speaking off of. What I'm speaking on is a basic pashat of Shavuot, which is this process of separating myself from the belief systems of there's fulfillment in other areas other than the source, which is the creator. And I could utilize the work. I could utilize the wood. I could utilize the animals. I could utilize the dirt. I could utilize everything to build this amazing world. I could utilize these things. But I have to separate myself from the perception that these things can bring me fulfillment. I have to separate pleasure and fulfillment psychologically in my mind. And so part of that, the concept of pleasure is also connected to familiarity, right? You're familiar, so it's cool. I'm kicking with people I'm familiar with. It's more pleasurable than maybe kicking with people you don't know. So familiarity plays a role. And what I'm saying is that the narrative of how we perceive ourselves is something that gives us safety. It's something that gives us a place where we're just like, hey, you know what? You know, this is who I am. And if you say that's not who I am, I remember you remember that thing. You remember that story I saw. You liked it. It was a story that I put up, and it was like a character, and it's like cartoon character says to the universe, "Hey, universe, I want this thing, whatever." And so the universe removes all these things from. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that idea. You know what I'm saying? And hold on, I'm trying to see if I can find it. This story. Maybe someone's watching it. Hold on a second. We'll do a little bit more and we'll finish off here. But we're doing good. But this is Shavuot. This is really Shavuot. You know what I'm saying? This is like, you know, hold on.
Everybody, you know what you were saying made me think about
Mm.
where Kazal says that if Adam would just, restrain himself from, eating a tree of knowledge, Hashem would permit it to him on Shabbat.
Yep.
It's like you can enjoy the pleasure, but it's a way that has to be engaged with. You know what I mean? That restriction, that understanding with it. I just found that interesting. Like if people just waited just a little longer, it'd been all good. But we wouldn't be here though.
Yep.
That happened.
And that's just and you know what? And that's a beautiful point. That's such. I'm gonna use that. So that's a beautiful point because it's like that. That's a very important. Hold on. Let's get to this. We're holding Instagram. There you go. Okay. Hold on.
Thing.
Hold on. Let me try to get this from the beginning.
Wait! Why did you change everything? Universe?
All right.
I really want this new thing. Wait! Why did you change everything?
So just on this point, so this is the thing. So that's the idea, right? We want to connect to Matan Torah, right? Which means we want to connect to that download that we received from Pesach, and we want to fully understand it, or at least get an inkling of where we're supposed to be going, where we're at now, and where we were before, right? That's where we want to go, right? But this process of right now, this cartoon character is asking for something from the creator, right? And this is a cartoon. This isn't a real thing, but we're using this as a mechanism for imagination. So so this character is asking for these things from the creator, and so the creator is now removing all these things from this character
To make room. But I want the new thing and everything else. I want it to stay the same, but still get the new thing. Getting this requires you to grow to be eligible for it. In your case, you're being held back by all of these things. So I removed the things holding you back. I chose the safest path for you. But now things are too different. I want to go back. You want to go back to how things were?
So if you remember, when the Jews are in the desert, right? What do they say to Moses? When the matzah ran out, he said, "What'd you do? You brought us out here. We should go back. At least we had fish and everything was more comfortable. We at least knew we had our next meal and this, and now we're out here and we're gonna die. And it's all your fault." I mean, I'm paraphrasing, right? So this is the same kind of concept that every human being goes through. This is what the Torah is teaching us. You're seeing it expressed right now in this conversation. God removed everything from them, and they're like, "Whoa, we're in the desert, and we don't even know who we are anymore." And this whole concept, like, I don't have any idea of this, right? And so the instinct of the human being is to run back. Look, this is 3,307 years ago that was written. That's a human condition.
You want to go back to how things were? Yes. It's too scary here now. You can have the life that you used to have. You're allowed to settle or stop progressing whenever you want, but you'll relive the same experiences again and again and again until you integrate them. You'll fall back into your old patterns, be around the same people with the same mindsets that you've outgrown, relive the same feelings, feel the same fears, and be held back by the same apprehension forever. You won't grow or expand. Are you sure you want to go backwards? Well, now that you put it that way.
So this is like the conversation that God was having with the Israelites all the way up to the time with the spies. That whole process of from the Exodus to them, this was the conversation. Like, you want to go back? You want to go to this other place? You want to follow in those same habits? You want to recreate the same slavery? I mean, remember, they built the calf. These guys were running back to them. Hey, Moshe ain't came back yet. You know what? We believed, we saw some miracles, but hey, we got to do what we got to do.
No, I'm not. But I don't want to be here either. I'm just uncomfortable.
Of
course you are. You're in between two chapters of your life. You're releasing a lot in order to make room for bigger and better things. You're still on the right path, even if it feels uncomfortable right now. Just relax. You're exactly where you need to be. Universe? I really want this new thing. Wait! Why did you change everything?
All right. So I think we got the idea on that. So you see that playing itself out a little bit, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying. That's the process that we're going through right now, right? This is the process that we're going through right now. We're going through this process of we're going through this process of we're going through this process of letting those things go, and walking forward with confidence with that. And knowing that there's going to be a Satan force that says, no, 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 go back to what's familiar, the older prior ways of thinking, prior situation, go the easier route. A lot of times, like even relationships, you see people when they're trying to create a relationship, they try to do it a lot of times through sexuality. You know what I mean? Where they create a physical bond with a person before an emotional bond or a spiritual bond or intellectual bond, right? Because those are a little bit harder to develop. It takes more time. It takes more vulnerability. It takes more honesty to build that, right? But the physical bond, it just, hey, I haven't hugged anybody in a long time. You haven't hugged anybody. Okay, let's do it again, So that type of thing, right? And so that process, building something real, something that lasts forever, requires us to let go of these ideas. And I'm not saying it's something that's going to happen overnight, because these things are very big parts of who we are in our belief system. But, my job, as a teacher, is to push that, right? Because that's where we're going, right? Someone who reinforces the darkness, they just try and keep you in the control. But the person saying like, no, you're free, you're connected, you're a soul. You're connected to all the souls, right? And really, truthfully, the African American advantage in the world is us as a community acknowledging the fake narrative and saying, hey, they gave us a fake narrative. And then we go to other people and say they gave you a fake narrative too. And this fake narrative that they gave you makes you feel superior or inferior, whatever, depending on where you're at in history. That's our advantage. Our advantage is the fact that we could say, yeah, all of this is false. I'm just a human being. Who else can say that? Who can say that in the blink of an eye? What group of people can say, you know what? I'm just a human being. I'm none of this. America denies this to this day. So what is God trying to teach me by that? Why can Americans say, yeah, you're Americans? Why is it easier for them to take an illegal immigrant and say he's American than a black person? Why gotta be African American? Why gotta be Negro? Why gotta be black? So you created that. Okay, cool. I'm not mad at it. I'll utilize America as I need. But you've already made it clear to me, you're not down with me. You have to mess with me because it fits into your agenda. Okay, cool. I'm not mad at that. The rules were created before I got here. But I don't have to abide by them, but I can maneuver in your system. And that's the power I'm trying to bring out, is the power of saying that none of the things were given to me are real. And guess what? Neither were they by you. Whatever history you think you know about yourself is contrived. Whatever narratives that you hold on to are subjective. And that's why you're empty, because you're not connected to being a human, which is a soul and a body that has a purpose unto itself that transcends any national identity, any ethnic identity, any social class, any education level, any income bracket. Any of those things are just made up ideas. Now, the fact that someone can come to my house put metal around my wrist and say, I'm arresting you and I'm going to jail because of a bunch of laws that they created. Okay, fine. You have the power to do that. If I had my own army, you wouldn't be able to do it. But because I don't, and I'm called a sovereign citizen, you have this power. But it doesn't make it reality. It doesn't make it reality. Oh, you have a constitution. Okay, fine. What if you just tore it up? It's a sacred document. Says who? Ah, the white people. The white people. They came together and said, okay, fine, sacred. Anyways, this ended here. We didn't get into the text, but we got into the message of Shavuot, right? And that's the most important thing. And then, and just think about this conversation and what we're going back and forth on, um, in terms of what we're trying to create as a human being, right? Because to stand on Mount Sinai, you have to be a human first. You have to let go of being whatever you were in Egypt, even though you came from you descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But on Mount Sinai, everybody who received the Torah had to convert. Everybody. So when people be like, "Oh, you're a convert," every Jew's a convert, bro. The whole concept of the nation of Israel is a nation of converts. Oh, but some of the people, weren't the people were from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Some of them were. They had to convert as well. Your genealogy does not make you shaykh to makabel the Torah, right? Right? It doesn't make you holy because Abraham was your 20th descendant or something, or whoever, Rashi. No, you have to convert, which means you have to change your way of seeing reality. You have to change your way of understanding where fulfillment comes from, right? And what your place is within it, what the rules are, right? And being open to receiving them as God feels a need to deliver them to you. That's conversion. Conversion isn't the bris milah in the mikvah. That's a siman. That's a sign for Hashem that you're in that consciousness, right? And this is what the Rav Bergen gave me at the Kabbalah Center, with that ability to think critically in this way. The other guys that you see that converted, they didn't have that, bro. And so a lot of them are still continuing a lot of the same behaviors that they had prior to getting into Judaism. They're still black. I'm utilizing it because it's marketable. But the reality is we are going to elevate the whole conversation beyond that, and we're going to bring it to the human discussion level, which brings it to the soul discussion level, which puts Kabbalah on top, right? Because only the Kabbalists, could describe, this unseen reality, right? And if you want to contest it, the only way you can contest it is to say it's not true. But it's not like you can override it. Anyways, OT, finish us. Any points, any reflections on any of this?
Baruch Hashem, just expanding the thought, it's a journey,
Yeah.
So, we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Definitely gonna get there. Hashem's already created the success. We just gotta show up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. So, I think all the conversations are necessary and needed. And, everyone should get the opportunity to express themselves and how they feel. But like I said, the Mr. concept is very important. The Albert Lavino concept is very important. Just leaving what you know. I think African Americans, we're gonna hold on to those vessels because we're very I don't want to say frugal in a sense, but we're very connected to the things that we have discovered through our hardships. So it's something that's a nuanced conversation, a delicate conversation, but we're gonna get what we need to get to.
Yeah, and you can see it, even with all the people I'm dealing with from that perspective, whether it's through Rob Zion Lex or independence or more, personal teaching. I don't lead what we built to this point. Now I'm bringing these points up. You know what I'm saying? After we go through the Masorah, after we go through a few holiday seasons, after we built the connection to understand, now we could have enough of a basic level of trust, right? A basic level of trust where we could say, hey, you know what? Um, a basic level of trust where we could explore these thoughts, because it's not about me. It's about being free. I'm not saying follow me. I'm saying follow you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're the infinite soul. It's not me. I'm saying I'm the infinite soul and I have the solutions for your life. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you are the infinite soul. I'm the infinite soul. We're all suffering in this world because we live in society that is nothing around it functions around the neshama. The Mashiach reality is the world understanding that they have a neshama. This is the basis of recognizing Mashiach, right? Because Mashiach is the source of light, right? He brings us into that era of this new light. But if we don't know we need the light, if we don't know that this is the element, we're looking for some new war general to take us into this era of Gog and Magog. It's like, no, the neshama. We build a society of people knowing that they have a soul and their soul has needs. This is it. This is the revolution. It's not religion, right? And it automatically is going to lead to mitzvot for the people who truly have a big desire, right? Anyways, we ended here. I'm going to do another class this evening. I'll send you a link up, but we go more into Rabbi Sachs, because I found another amazing outline on Shavuot by him, and we also still have the other one that we were learning yesterday, right? So it's a bunch of great stuff, a lot of great materials. Rabbi Sachs really, from a contemporary standpoint, just really just lays it out like butter on toast, warm butter on toast. So we'll continue on this building for Shavuot, and obviously we're in Mesilat Yesharim, but you know what? Review, because there's a lot of information. It's like we're going into different levels of piety and these types of things, and this is your sefer, right? This sefer that we're going to finish it together, but very soon, B'vat Hashem. But you're going to teach people this sefer. You're going to teach people this sefer. You're going to go through this thing, but yeah, you learned to Rabbi Mordecai in 2025, while he was in Jerusalem, right? Maybe he'll still be in Jerusalem, God willing, with a bunch of kids. But you could talk about, we learned it together here, all the way, page for page, right? So this is that's your sefer, right? We'll get back to Chav HaYashar. That's also your sefer, right? So all these different, books that we're bringing, but specifically Mesilat Yesharim, you have to master this sefer. You master this, and I'm not going to tell you the promises that he says a person who masters the sefer, because I don't want to make it too heavy, but you'll ascend to a very high level of consciousness, and so we're learning these sefers because these are going to be the sefers that you're going to leave. God willing, I'll be able to send people to you in the future and say, yeah, go and learn with OT now. Go and learn Mesilat Yesharim. Start there and start working on your midot. And then, after you work with him, then we'll figure out what's next. You know what I mean? That's my goal. That's my goal, right? And so we have to go through these farm, get used to them, repetition, and you just knowing it. And then you just be like, you just coming off the dome. You don't even need to open it at a point. Okay, this chapter is this. But obviously you have the book for that, but you see all the levels, right? And you're saying that the stuff we're talking about, a lot of people need to hear it, right? Okay, I agree. You got to tell them to. You know what I mean? Because we need you, and then you're going to have students, and then you're going to teach them, these different sparring, and then they're going to teach other people, right? So that's the point, right? Is to and obviously we got to teach our kids, but that's the point, is to really master these sparring and to get very clear on them, and because you could teach this for the rest of your life. This is Mesilat Yesharim, bro. It's one of the greatest classics ever written in human history, right? In terms of character development, from acknowledging the soul needing light. All these other books, they don't acknowledge that. They're written on a false premise. Anyways, we'll stop here. Baruch atah Adonai.